Well, welcome back to another episode of the Cruise Conversations podcast. I'm Michael.
And I'm Frank.
And today's episode is episode number 70, and we're sitting down to talk about some recent cruise news and give some of our initial thoughts on Perfect Day Mexico. Let's jump into it.
Well, Michael, it's been a really awesome few weeks. We've had a really good run of guests. We've also been covering some really good topics. Wanted to quickly shout out my wife, Scotty. We got off Icon of the Seas. In September, we had her on for 2 episodes and kind of talked about Icon, talked about the Eastern Caribbean itinerary as well. Then we brought on Leslie, and she gave her review of the 9-month World Cruise. And then, of course, last week we had Ian and Claire, and they did a whole review of the Norwegian fjords, and just kind of talking about their experience in sailing from Southampton. But because of all that, we haven't had a chance to talk about cruise news, and there's been a lot going on just recently and things that we haven't had a chance to talk about. So, people are texting us, like people that we've had on the podcast and just friends of ours, and they're like, hey, did you see this? And so we thought it was a good time to kind of debrief some of the big topics that are going on in the cruise industry, and there's a lot of really cool things coming. So with that, Michael, I'll throw it over to you for our first cruise news item of the week.
Yeah, sounds good, Frank. I mean, like you said, we have a bunch of different cruise lines we're going to be talking about today, too. We got MSC, Norwegian, Princess, Disney, and Royal Caribbean. I mean, that's a good amount of different brands, different news to kind of go over. But yeah, let's start off MSC. They just announced some of their new itineraries coming out for 2025 and 2026, and they're going back down to South Africa. They typically do winter season down here. They currently have the MSC Musica down there this winter doing the 2024-2025 season, and then they just announced that the MSC Opera, who's been to South Africa in the past, is going to be doing the 2025-2026 season. Now, the cool thing to note here is, we've talked about kind of how Norwegian does some African coast cruises. MSC's here too, right? But the itineraries are a little shorter, right? They mainly do 2 to 5 day sailings, and they're out of both Cape Town and Durban, South Africa. And they go to places like Mozambique and Namibia, and just some cool destinations. Kind of a thing to note here, ships are a little smaller, a little older. Both ships, the Musica and the Opera, hold under 3,000 guests. But like you said, you're going to these cool ports that, like you said, not many other cruise lines are sailing Africa, South Africa. So yeah, just another option if you're interested in going to check out any of these African cruise ports. It's another great ship to go sail.
Yeah, I would love to get over to South Africa. I did see that on the cruise news, Royal was doing a 17 night, and they're doing the longer, so not similar to this with MSC doing 2 to 5 nights. But they're it's more of a repositioning thing, right? Because of the issues in the Suez Canal region, they're not able to go easily from Europe across to Asia and Australia, so they have to go all the way around. And so they're turning that into 2 different cruises, I believe, on Voyager of the Seas next year. So there'll be a Voyager of the Seas from, I want to say, Monaco on the northwest end of Africa, all the way around to South Africa, and then South Africa to, I believe, Indonesia. So there's kind of 2, but I was yeah, those are longer ones, right? So if you just wanted to get away, see some of Africa, I think this is probably geared more towards people that are going already to Africa and wanted to add a cruise to their trip. Or you're from you're already from South Africa, or you're from Europe, or for us it's a big trip, right? So it's far from the US, so we'd have to go and do some other things and then kind of tag this on.
Yeah, and while they are doing those 2 to 5 nights, they do have some longer itineraries. I think one was a 14-day. They have a special New Year's Eve cruise too they're doing. So there are some longer options as well to look into, but I think the bulk of the itineraries are those 2 to 5 days. Well, Frank, the next piece of news you have for us, actually, like you said, how we've had some people in the podcast that have sent some stuff to us. The Cruising Bear, we've had on for a couple episodes, and does this next piece of news. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so Norwegian is going to be sailing 2 ships year-round starting November of 2025. So it's going to be the Norwegian Prima and the Norwegian Viva year-round from Galveston, Texas. So it's really cool for those that live in Galveston, or maybe you're from the West Coast, or even from Central Time Zone. You're able to quickly get down to Galveston rather than going all the way to Florida. But this cruise port is just continuing to grow. We're going to talk about something really, really cool for Galveston towards the end of this episode and some of our other news. But yeah, it's just continuing to grow. I mean, there's 6 cruise lines currently sailing from here. Obviously, you have Carnival, Royal, Disney, Princess, Norwegian, MSC. And so you've got a lot of cruise options, whether you want to do a 4-night just from Galveston to Cozumel, I believe, or there's, 5-night options, there's 6-night options. They even have some different options for Mexico now, like you can go to Progresso. So just depending on the cruise line, that there's becoming more creativity, and I think I'm excited for what's to come for Galveston. And I think that like there's going to be new ships coming here. Royal's going to be adding things as well. So I think that like they're probably going to need, I mean, it's going to be very, very competitive. And I think the cruise lines are really leaning into Galveston as like that next big port, no doubt.
I think it'll also be interesting to kind of just see the continuation, like you said, with the new itineraries, but like just the length of cruises. Like you said, right now, I think the max is like a 7-day, but to see if they can somehow tack on extra days and get out of the Western Caribbean and get, I don't know, either south or east, or I mean, like you said, maybe you run a couple 2-week cruises a year for some of these lines, just like you said, be able to get those people that live over there in Texas out to kind of some newer destinations.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I know that there's like some on Royal that are like 8 nights, I want to say, on Harmony planned for next year, where you can actually go to Coco Cay and, that base. It just takes it takes a lot of time, right? So it's pretty far away. But I think there are 8-night cruises. But that's a good point. Like if you could go from Galveston, hit some of those stops, and then, do some of the Eastern Caribbean in like a 10, 11-night cruise, that would be, and then they can add in like a 4-night to complement it. I mean, that'd be pretty awesome. So we'll see what happens with that. I know they're going to have to get creative just with space and stuff. But yeah, I was thinking like, what is the future hold for more cruise ports? And I feel like Galveston is like, obviously when you think of the biggest, you've got Miami, Fort Lauderdale, you've got Port Canaveral. And then, I mean, Galveston and New York are the other ones that like come to mind immediately after that. I don't even think like Fort Lauderdale is as big as Galveston is right now. So it's definitely, I would say, top 3 in size at this point. And like in terms of total investment, I think the cruise lines are putting a lot of investment here.
All right. Well, the next piece of news we have, we haven't talked about the ship in a while, the Sun Princess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Princess's newest ship. We've talked about this ship on Cruise News in the past, but it's been sailing over in the Med since it's launched, but it actually just started its first sailing here in the U.S. October 14th. So if it's a 7-nighter, it's still going on right now, the inaugural cruise from here. And I know that Hurricane Milton affected some people being able to get to the ship and actually make it for this first sailing. But, we haven't talked about this ship in a while. And, some other newer stuff's been announced since we last talked about it. So kind of just some newer things. Princess has really been promoting the dining on the ship, right? Trying to make it their standout ship when it comes to dining. And they've added some new venues to the ship. They have a new all-day diner, right? When we've talked to Jeremy in the past about Norwegian and his time on that ship, he was talking about the diner on that ship. So another line kind of embracing this all-day breakfast and then kind of your just American fare food menu for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They've also decided to go the route of adding a specialty restaurant for their suite-only guests. That's included. So like on Royal Caribbean, you have Coastal Kitchen. Here you have the Sanctuary Restaurant, and the Sanctuary guests will be able to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner here.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Now, the big news here, we talked about this experience when it was first announced, and I've seen some videos on it now, and it sounds super cool, Spellbound. Frank, we've been talking about your recent experiences on the Royal Railway and Empire Supper Club, on your recent Royal Caribbean sailings. This is kind of Princess's, entrance into entertainment, right? It's this whole experience. I was watching some videos, and it can go on for about 4 hours. It's about $150 a person, but it's like a 4-part series type thing, right? So, the first experience starts in the main, a part of the main dining room area. It's kind of sectioned off in the back by itself, and there's some decorations, and it's a kind of a preset menu. You have a couple different appetizers to start off with. Interesting looking, Bloody Mary-ish mocktail type drink, which one of the videos I was watching, the girl described it as salad in a cup. And I was
interesting.
Yeah, I'm I'm not a big Bloody Mary person, so I probably wouldn't have that. But then when you get to the main entree part, I think they said it was fish, beef, or veggie. And then, you had different palate cleansers throughout and then ended with dessert. But then when you finish the dinner, somebody comes and grabs you to bring you to kind of the secret room, right, where this magical experience is happening. When this was first announced and we first talked about it on the podcast, it was a collaboration with the Magic Castle, which is a place out in, I think, LA. And it's kind of like we said, this magical kind of intimate experience. And that's kind of what happens when you get to this next room, right? You kind of walk in and it's like this little holding area, a little fireplace, and they're like telling you about the Magic Castle and kind of just some of the history behind that. And then you're actually lit out into this lounge area. And dude, I'll have to send you a video to watch on this. The theming here is incredible. There's a like a ghost pianist that's the piano is like playing songs, and you can tell it like requests, and it'll play the different songs. You have a bar. Yeah, I know. You have a bar, which like the bartender's doing different like magic tricks while making the drinks, and there's a whole specialty like cocktail list and drink list, and everything's included in your cost for the most part. I think like some of the high end spirits you had to pay extra for, but like I said, the drinks are included. There's like a little library area, a parlor area, and you're kind of just hanging out here, right? You're kind of just hanging out, having some drinks, exploring the area, messing around with some of the different props and stuff. Like I said, you have the ghost pianist playing, and then after that, it's kind of they take you over to the bar, do some magic there. And then after that, they bring you into kind of like a small little 30-seat theater, and that's kind of where the main show is. So
dude, that sounds awesome. That really sounds amazing. I
know. It sounds just like, obviously, it's a little pricey, right? $150 a person, but it's this long experience. It's pretty much your evening.
I feel like it's worth it. If it includes alcohol, for sure, worth it, right?
Yeah, and the reviews have they're like, well, like the food side's kind of like, I'm not saying a letdown, but they're like they were expecting a little more. I don't want to say pizzazz, but like either magical presentations.
Yeah, I would say that's the part
when
you were explaining it that feels weird, is like that you're eating in the dining room. Like, sure, it's cornered off, but it's like, okay, it's not like a specialty. It's not really a specialty dining. It's like more of like after dinner is kind of where the magic starts, So you're really like not. The food. Unless it's like really a huge step up, I'd imagine they're still cooking it with the same chefs that probably cook the main dining room food, right? Like I would imagine it may be like a better selection, better options, like maybe some more exquisite stuff, but at the same time, it's not like you're in like you kind of have to, if you still have to walk through the main doors of the main dining room, then you kind of feel like you're in the main dining room, right?
Yeah.
Now, I will say, like, we booked, a shout out to Hans, right? So Hans, we booked him on Sun Princess next year. And one of the things that I feel like kind of disappointed me was I think we did Princess Premier for him, right? So you pay like a per day cost, and you get all of your drinks and you get your dining. Now, the one thing I don't love about Princess Premier and like kind of this whole package is that in order to book your specialty restaurants, you have to, to book them in advance, you have to pay off your entire cruise, which is like,
That's
I'm
crazy.
like, how does that have anything to do with like, I know, right? So like, that is something to call out, that like, they let you book some of this in advance, but you have to pay off your entire cruise, which if you're sailing as a family, that can change things, right? So just calling that out as well.
Yeah, and one other thing to note there, Frank, you were mentioning Princess Premier and all that. The Spellbound experience is not included in that, and it's not even like you can pay like an upcharge amount like you can with the Royal Railway and Empire Supper Club. It is like a standalone $150 experience.
Interesting. Yeah, that is interesting that they don't like discount it. Speaking of like pre-booking things, like I was mentioning earlier, Royal this week just launched the new capabilities so that if you do have the unlimited dining package on any of your upcoming cruises, you can pre-book dining reservations. Now, there is a caveat that if you've already had it booked, you would have to cancel and rebook it in order to make those reservations in the system. So you can't like have it already and then make the reservations. You need to cancel the package, get the refund, and rebook it to be able to do it. But this is really, really cool. So for any new cruises that you're going on, if you book the dining package, you can make the reservations, which is just going to make everyone try to book the package like earlier, which is good. Yeah. And you'll have more of that predictability with your reservations and not have to like stress when you get on board and be like, okay, let me go figure out like my shows and this, like all of that will now be done way beforehand, which is it's really nice. I mean, maybe there will be some things you can tweak on board, but I mean, I'm really, really excited about this. So that's a good update from Royal this week.
The next piece of news we have, Disney Cruise Lines dropped more details on the Disney Adventure that is going to be sailing in December of 2025 from Singapore. And kind of one of the biggest pieces of news with this is one of the new zones on the ship, right? It's Marvel themed. It's called Marvel Landing, and it's going to have some rides on the ship. So you're going to have what they're saying is the longest roller coaster at sea. Looks like Bolt from Carnival, right? So probably the same company coming in and putting the roller coaster on their ship as well. I wanted them to, I know the layout of Bolt, and I was real interested when they were saying this was the longest one to see how the layout differs on the ship, if it differs at all, or if it kind of does the same little thing but just happens to be longer. So, that's super exciting to see them coming to another cruise line. And then 2 other new rides. You got this mini car track ride for kids, and then a little spinner ride for kids as well. So, from Disney, you would kind of expected this in the past, right? Especially after Royal out in the boardwalk added a merry-go-round, and obviously, like we said, Carnival's had Bolt. Disney, they're known for their theme parks, right? And known for rides and all that. So
they do have the water slide. They have the bit that really
That's
awesome
true.
Launch water slide, but
that's true. Yeah,
you're right. They've been missing something.
Yeah, I don't say they're missing something, but I guess you would have just thought they'd be the first ones to have a roller coaster on the ship or stuff like that. So
yeah,
cool to see that coming to the ship. And then they've also kind of announced some of the different theme zones on this ship, right? So like we said, you have Marvel Landing, you have the Toy Story place, which is going to be a kids water park, San Francisco Street, which is based on Big Hero 6. That's going to be a family entertainment area. The Disney Imagination Garden, this seems pretty cool. It's kind of like an open air. It almost kind of reminds me part of the ship like Central Park on Oasis Class. But they have this garden stage that they're going to be able to perform different shows on. And it has a 3-deck high LED screens in the background behind it. I think they're saying they're going to be 2 different shows there at the start. The Disney Discovery Reef, which is a themed area for some of the underwater, Finding Nemo and stuff like that. And this is another open-air breezeway on the ship with different eateries and bars and cafes. You got Wayfinder Bay on the after the ship, which has its own bar, pool area, amphitheater-style seating for the lounger. But the pool also turns into a performance venue, and it looks like there's going to be a Moana show that's going to happen there with LED screens in the background of that. You got Times Square. You got another new performance on the ship, which I'm actually interested to see how it turns out. It's called Remember, and it's going to have Coco in it and WALL-E and some other different movies kind of intertwined with that. And then obviously you have a bunch of new dining on the ship. I was talking with some friends, and ones they were interested in was Mike and Sully's Flavor of Asia. So if you remember on Monsters, Inc., there's a little Japanese restaurant they go to. And this area of the ship's going to have its own Japanese steakhouse, teppanyaki, a sushi bar, a sake bar, do some omakase-style dining. It sounds like a decent-sized area on the ship. And then, you kind of just have some other venues that some of the different characters are going to kind of oversee. You got Mowgli from the Jungle Book having an Indian food restaurant, Stitch's Ohana Grill with different burgers and sandwiches and American food. And then another cool one, you have Bewitching Boba and Brews. And this is a villain-inspired, Ursula, Little Mermaid, little lounge area doing boba teas and brews. So, like I said, they announced a lot. Definitely go check it out.
Fett. I was thinking, almost like a Star Wars thing, but then you were like, no, I'm going to go Little Mermaid.
That actually, you should send that idea to them. That would be cool too. That could work on a future ship if the boba takes off. But yeah, like I said, definitely go check out the details online. They've released a lot. Like we said, this one's sailing from Singapore. I think was it the Disney Treasure we had talked about in the past, or one of their other ships when we had talked about some of the different themed areas on those ships as well. But Disney's really stepped it up, right? I feel like the cruise lines we were always talking about was kind of Royal and then Carnival when they started doing the different zones and neighborhoods on the ship. And now they've really embraced it too. And when you got all the IPs and brands that they have, why not at the end of the day?
They have such an awesome opportunity to really create this immersive experience that carries from the shows, from the movies, and bring that on the ship. So just like they do at their amusement park. So I'm excited because I'm actually going to Disney in a few weeks. So I'm excited to do that, and then going on a cruise the next day. So that'd be really cool to do a comparison of that. But really looking forward, like you said, to what's coming next with the Disney Cruise Line and Disney Adventure. So,
well, Frank, here we are. now we got the biggest piece of news.
Yeah, let's do it. So Perfect Day Mexico was announced this past week. This is going to be a $600 million private island. It's not really an island, so they're using the existing infrastructure of the port of Costa Maya. So basically, like where the ships dock, I think they're gonna keep that space, but then everything else is gonna be kind of torn down and redone, if you will. So they're gonna be building for all the Royal Caribbean ships. So other ships will continue to still go to this island, but for the Royal Caribbean ships, there will be a massive 200+ acre Perfect Day experience, which is going to be very similar to the Coco Cay experience. They also purchased the Lost Kingdom water park. We don't know exactly like if they'll keep anything. It sounds like they probably won't, but they do have the land for the water. Imagine like there's things that we won't see, right? Like the water underneath. Like there's probably things that like the infrastructure of a water park may help them save some money. But it's $600 million, so I think that they're just kind of looking at this like a blank slate. So if you're like, hey, what about for other cruise lines? They will be building a boardwalk that will go to that village. Michael, I think you just went there, right? Mahalal.
Yeah.
So there will be like a boardwalk that will connect the cruise port to that so that guests can easily walk into that town and that village. Or they could go into like a transportation center, which will take them to all their excursions or anything anything they would like to do for the day. But if you're a Royal Caribbean guest, you'll get a very similar experience to what you have at Perfect Day at Coco Cay today, where you don't have to pay anything extra. You'll get off the ship. You'll have beaches. You'll have a big pool. They haven't really said if it's going to be like the largest pool in the Caribbean, but it will be a very large pool. They're saying that's going to be a large water park. There's going to be multiple beaches, but they've really leaned into the thought about the food and the culture, right? Because this is Mexico. It's not like, Coco Cay. What's the best thing about Coco Cay? Like everyone talks about the sandwich, right? Like no one's talking about like the Caribbean food, right? So they really want to lean into like Coco Cay is great. I'm sure we'll see like the chicken sandwich or something like that at the Costa Maya at Perfect Day Mexico. But I would imagine they're going to do something crazy based on what the CEO is saying with food, trying to make it really feel like you're in Mexico. They don't want to make it like Disney-ish, like, oh, look at this, ruins that we just created and like take a photo here. Like they're not going to do that. But they are going to try to like lean into the culture. And we don't know what that looks like, but there's different things that they've talked about. Like there's a train that's on the property that they could leverage and do like kind of like a history tour and have some people come on and talk about the farming and I don't know. We don't know exactly what they're going to do in terms of that, but we do know that, multiple beaches, pools, bars, restaurants. They're going to have a private adults only. So it's going to be similar to Hideaway where they've got an adults only area. They're going to have a beach club, which is, kind of like an upscale beach club. They're going to have the water park. They're going to do the helium balloon again. So, I mean, honestly, this is just super exciting. I'm a big Royal guy, so obviously I'm excited. It will also be like really in your face if you're not a Royal like person and you go to Costa Maya. Like you're going to see this and you're going to be like, dude, like what the heck? You know what I mean? Like at Coco Cay, there's no other like cruise lines that are right there. Like, so everything that people see about Coco Cay is on, TikTok or on Instagram. They see the videos and whatever on YouTube. But when you are pulling up to the dock and you get off and you see that and you're like, oh, I'm going into Mahahal. Like they want you to like be like sad walking back to the ship that you like missed out on that. You know what I mean? So it's really, really good business from there. And when you think about the cost, right? $600 million. One Oasis class ship, I think Utopia came in like 1.1 billion. So it sounds like a ton of money, but when you think about a new ship, right? This is like half of a ship, right? So half of an Oasis class ship. And look at how good Coco Cay has done. I was talking, I think maybe to you, Michael, about this, and for the last couple of weeks. I think one of the reasons why I do cruise a lot more now and like I go on a lot more cruises has a lot to do with Coco Cay. I think the fact that I can go back multiple times a year and like just really enjoy and like do something different. Like, do I want to do the water park? Do I want to do the adults only area? Do I just want to go and not spend a dime and just like enjoy all the free areas like Chill Island? Or this time with Scotty, we're doing the Royal Beach Club. So there's like so many options to have a really great day in the Bahamas and you feel safe and there's a lot of great free food and all of that, and your drink package works. So there's like a lot of really great things about it. I think this will also add to that in that, you have something really great to look forward to on those Western Caribbean itineraries.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, you mentioned the other cruise lines stopping there, right? And like people seeing it and being like, oh, like I want to check that out in the future. I feel like for the people sailing out of Texas, I mean, a lot of those lines, I mean, they port at Cozumel and Costa Maya already. It'll probably be harder for them to change, but I wonder from the side, I mean, like we said, you have Carnival that stops here, MSC that stops here, Norwegian, like a bunch of other lines stop at Costa Maya. I wonder the ones sailing out of Florida if they're going to start to try to avoid Costa Maya, almost for that same reasoning, right? Like, if I'm the owner of Carnival Cruise Line, I don't want my people seeing this and being like, oh, let's jump ship and go over there now. So it'll be interesting to see how like just itineraries as a whole change. I know I think the cruise lines kind of found out the same week that this was announced. So, I mean, obviously they're still working on their itineraries for the future. I think at this point, any ones that were planning on stopping at Costa Maya, the plan is still to stop there as all this construction continues to go on over these next couple of years. And I mean, I think that's where it gets interesting, right? Because I know when we first started talking about this, I figured the whole cruise port area was going to remain, right? And I'm like, all right, well, maybe they can build this off to the right. Kind of when you cross the pier anyways, there's an excursion pickup area. I'm like, maybe that'll be the entrance, then everybody else will have the left. And, you talked about the transportation center and all that. But the fact that it sounds like this whole thing's getting torn down is crazy. Because, I mean, for anybody, I've been there twice now over the last, year and a half. And, I mean, it's a newer port area. It's, built out real nice. You have a big pool, swimming with dolphins, bird aviary, shops. I mean, there's a good amount there where if you don't want to go venture off on an excursion, you can just get off the ship and chill there for the day. But I'm real interested to see how this shapes out, right? And as they start to announce, kind of like you said, they're still kind of planning on what they're going to add to this thing. We know a little bit of it. I mean, I hope for your sake you get a flow rider or two out there on land. That'd be super neat because CocoCay don't have that.
They haven't confirmed nor denied, but I think that would be something that would be easy because they already have one at the.
I swear there was one already in the cruise port area, kind of in the back.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it'll be really interesting to see how it all pans out. This is 2027, and they did say that they want this to be rather than with CocoCay doing, multiple releases where I feel like the water park was, later and Hideaway was obviously later and Cocoa Beach Club was later. A lot of the island, South Beach was later. So a lot of the things weren't in the initial release. They want all of this to be ready on day one, 2027. So I know that's pretty aggressive. I'm sure there will be things that will continue past that. I think they're just saying that their goal is to have it all done at once, in that when you go for the first time, you've got all the beaches, all the pools, the adults only. So it's really, really cool. I think CocoCay, again, it's just been such a success. I mean, a lot of people book cruises just to go to CocoCay, and I think even on the shareholder meetings and stuff, it's amazing, and that's driving a lot of their revenue. So I think this is going to be the next thing. And don't forget, so next year, 2025, they have the Beach Club at Nassau, which is a private beach club experience for a day. They're building that right by the cruise port. So that'll be late 2025. Then 2026, they've got the Beach Club at Cozumel. So that's going to be another one where you pay extra an excursion, but to get that extra private beach club experience. So that's 2026. And then this comes 2027. So if you go 2027, there's a chance you could do CocoCay, Beach Club at Cozumel, and do this Perfect Day at Mexico, which is in one sailing. So pretty wild, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Frank, overall, it sounds like it's going to be a great day. I mean, someone who's, like I said, only been there twice, I mean, it'll be cool to have, like you said, this brand new big thing there to do. I almost did the Lost Kingdom water park earlier this year, but just the pricing point of it just didn't seem worth it. But like you said, they do have current infrastructure there, a lazy river, I think, and different zip line structures that I think one of them ends in the water and all that. So it'll be interesting to see how much of that they keep or demolish or what they end up doing when it comes to their water park and all that, because you do have some cool kind of features out there. But yeah, like you said, I'm sure there'll be some itinerary at some point that hits CocoCay and the beach clubs and Perfect Day in Mexico, and just do that. I mean, because if you're Royal side, I mean, you're going to your destinations. That's your people spending money at your places. So I mean, it only helps them in the long run, and I mean, I'm sure people will love it too.
I mean, what's your thoughts as a non-Royal like cruiser? You know, like someone who doesn't choose Royal typically. Like, would you say that this is like more like a nuisance, or are you like still excited? Because I know I had talked to Jeremy about this too. Like living in Galveston, he's personally excited because it just adds another thing and like another reason to go to Costa Maya. But like it does kind of like he didn't really seem excited about Costa Maya as is. But I wanted to hear from you, like what your thoughts are.
And that's the thing. I think like if you're sailing from Texas and go to Costa Maya a lot, there's only so much you can currently do there. I mean, I think just my side of it, like I really enjoyed the excursion to the ruins I did the one time, and then like the lunch at the local village and all that. So I think I just have like those memories to it, and I think that's why like you said, my bias is kind of like, oh, like you're just coming in and destroying what is there and rebuilding. And I think that was just the shock of them like tearing down the initial port area, because I mean I do think it's nice, it's beautiful, there's a lot to do there. But you also say I lean away from Royal a lot. You know, by the end of next year I'll have sailed more Royal than Carnival.
Hey,
your magic's working.
My magic's working. We've got a cruise coming up in January on Allure, so
yeah, we did Alaska.
Alaska. So we got a couple coming up. You're right. I've gotten you away from Carnival a little bit. So
hey, I will say you got me on those celebration vlogs, and now that's making me want to go sail that again too, though. So we should. And hey, then you got the MSC World America coming out next year. That looks super cool. So
yeah,
who knows? I'm going to be sailing in the future. Yeah, who knows? But
there's a lot out there. We have our whole lives to try all these different cruise lines and itineraries, so we have plenty of time. But that'll probably wrap up this week's episode. We just wanted to go through the cruise news. Obviously, spend a little bit more time talking about Perfect Day Mexico, because it is something that is going to impact a lot of our Royal itineraries in the future. So with that, thank you so much for listening to another episode. We just really wanted to go through some of the cruise news, a lot of things on the docket, but I think we're in a good spot now going forward. So thank you for listening. And if you're in the spot where you're looking at cruises or even thinking about cruises next year, we'd love to start the planning process and work with you. Doesn't cost anything to use a travel agent like Michael or myself. We'll make sure we get you that best price. We can add onboard credit. We can potentially add specialty dining and a lot of other things for using us, and we really appreciate that as a way to give back to the podcast. If you're interested in that, you can send us a DM at Cruise Conversations on Instagram, on Facebook. You can drop a note on this episode, or you can shoot us a text at 704-313-8556, and we will respond with a quote on your upcoming cruise for you and your family. So we're excited about that. And we've got a lot of clients traveling, Michael, over the next coming weeks and months throughout the end of the year. So maybe we'll get to bring on some of our clients that are going on some cool cruises onto the podcast as well for some interviews. But thank you so much again for listening to this episode, and we will see you back here next Wednesday.